Good morning, everyone. So, in the last session, we discussed about the relation operators as well as the Boolean operators we identified here. So, any questions regarding our previous session? Anyone having any question? Okay. So, if not, we'll continue today with a different information like ternary operator, how this particular ternary operator is going to work in our Java language. So, before going to discuss about the ternary operator here, I want to assign the value for this particular variables here. So, if we observe what are all the values we are going to assign here. So, here I'm having value here into x comma y comma z. Okay, I'm declaring this particular three variables here, and now I'm trying to initializing the value. So observe carefully how I'm trying to initializing the value. X is equals to y is equals to z is equals to 100 here. Getting the button. X is equals to y is equals to z is equals to 100. Now what you understand here, this particular 100 value I'm trying to set into this particular three variables here. The 100 value I'm trying to set into these three variables here. Okay. So each variable can contain the same value here. This is assigning the particular value at a time here. If we are trying to assign the same value for multiple variables here, so this is the way we can initialize the value. So otherwise, one more way to initialize the value. X is equals to 100 and y is equals to 200 and z is equals to 300. Getting the point? So this is the way we can initialize the value, but now you can see instead of comma, we should use the semicolon. Now you can see x is equals to 100, y is equals to 200, and z is equals to 300. We are initializing the three values. So these three values are different values we are initializing, but the line number 8 here, what we are doing is we are initializing the same value for this particular multiple variables here. Okay, so this is the way we can initialize the value. And now we'll discuss about the ternary operator. Basically, the ternary operator, it will try to replace certain types here. So now you can see how this particular ternary operator is going to work. So ternary operator is going to come up with this particular question mark. So this particular expression, whatever the expression you are writing before this particular question mark here, if this particular expression will return true. Getting the point? If this expression will return true after the question mark, whatever the expression we are going to write, the after the question mark will execute here. Getting the point? This is important here. And for example, if it is returned false here, so after the colon, getting the point? After the colon, whatever the expression we are going to write, this particular expression will execute here. So now you can see carefully here. So entire information is going to work on this particular question expressions here. Whatever the expression we are going to write before this particular question mark here, if it is true, it will execute this after the question mark. But in some cases, it may return the false here. If it is returns a false here after the colon, get in the point. After the colon, it will try to execute this. So now you can see. Now what I am doing is the int x value equals to get in the point 10. If this particular x value equals to 10, now what I am doing here, I'm defining the question mark here, and here I'm trying to return the 20. So otherwise, after the colon, I'm going to return as a 40. Carrying the point. So now observe carefully. So this is the ternary example we are using it. Now what you need to understand here, question mark here. So after the question mark, so we are having colon. Now if this particular expression, if x equals to 10, if this particular x equals to 10 is going to satisfy if it is returned true. If it is returns true, now this particular value is going to execute here. What is the value is going to execute? The 20 value is going to execute. Some case, if it is returned false, Some case, if it is returned false here, now what is the value is going to execute? 40 value. Getting the point? So this is a important example we are discussing here, because if you see carefully how this particular ternary operator is working here, how this particular ternary operator. So the real-time example. So now I'm going to provide the example here. Math is a one class which is available inside this particular java.lang package here. Now I'm trying to call this main method. Now observe carefully. So how we are using the ternary operator? You can see here we are providing the question mark operator here, and what you need to understand here, this is important here. So this is all about the a less than or equals to b, and if this particular expression a less than or equals to b, if it is going to satisfy, so this particular value will return. Otherwise, this particular value is going to return here. Getting the point? This is the one of the important the ternary operator example. Getting the point? Now, what is the value I'm going to provide? For example, I'm giving a value 10. I'm giving a value 10. Let me initialize the a value. And b value 5 I'm initializing. Okay, can you please let me know? Can you please let me know? So what is the value it's going to return here? The main method, what is the value is going to return? You can identify your values using this particular expression. Whatever the expression I'm highlighting here, you can identify your values and provide your output here. So which condition is going to satisfy? So which value is going to return? Either a value is going to return or the b value is going to return. So could you please think and let me know? So how this ternary operator is going to work? So you'll get to know with help of this particular values here. So you can message me or you can communicate with me. So what is the expected value you're trying to think? B. So by why this particular B is going to satisfy here? Because it's going to basically a value we are having 10, and yesterday we discussed about the less than or equals to example, and now you can see now b value. What is the b value we are having? Right now we are having 5. So this particular expression is not going to satisfy. So it is returning false here. Getting the point? It is returning false. Once it is returning false, so the after the question mark, whatever the value we are providing, it will not execute here. But after the colon, whatever the value we are having, the particular value is going to execute here. In our case, it will return the b, that is the value of 5 here. Getting the point? So this is the simple example on this particular ternary operator. Now we'll come up with in our simple example how it is going to use. Okay, so observe carefully how we can use this particular ternary operator. Now what I'm doing here, I'm going to comment out this entire code here, and once we comment out here, we'll discuss about the new section here. Okay, now understand here into I comma k. So how many variables I'm declaring here? 2 variables I'm declaring. So what are the variable I'm declaring here? I comma j, and I value I'm giving as a 10. And so k value I'm trying to initialize with the help of this particular ternary operator here. Okay, observe if I less than 0, getting the point? If I less than 0, now what I'm doing is I'm going to provide the minus I value. Otherwise, I'm going to provide the I value. Getting the point? So this is important here. So this is important. We need to understand here how this particular I values is going to work. Okay, and in our case, now what I will do, I will try to print the I and k value. Here, okay, so these are all the values I'm going to print here. Now observe carefully. Now observe carefully int I comma k and I value 10 and k is equals to I less than 0. If I less than 0 is going to satisfy, now what happens internally? Observe carefully, if this particular I less than 0, if the condition is satisfied true, so it will return the minus I, otherwise it will return the plus I here. So let me run this simple example here. Let me run this particular simple example. Now you can see I value 10 and K value also 10 here. So here I'm printing the I value and here I'm trying to print in the K value here. So why the K value is printing 10 here? Because it is returning, the condition is not satisfied here. Getting the one. So if we observe, I'm trying to come up with one more value. If I value less than or equals to 10, if the I value less than or equals to 10, now you can see minus 10 is returning. So why the minus 10 it is returning? Basically, if you observe carefully, this condition is satisfying now. Earlier, the condition is not satisfied, but now the condition is satisfying here. Because of that, it is returning the minus I here. So minus I it is returning. Okay. So this is important. We need to understand how this particular ternary operator here. Okay. Now what I will do, I'm going to provide the multiple values. Int x is equals to something like so double dA is equals to 45.12. Okay. And now one more variable I'm trying to initialize here. dB is equals to something like dB, just I will declare. So I'm going to use this particular same ternary operator here. So dB is equals to, now what I will do, so dA equals to something like 45. Okay, 45.78 here. And if it is condition will satisfied here, I will return dA. Otherwise, minus dA I will return here. Getting the pen. And finally, what I'm trying to print here, so dA value, the dB value, what is the dB value we are going to get? So I'm going to print. So this is the different example we are trying to execute here. Okay. So this is very important. We need to understand here. Now you can see, so minus 45.12. Why it is printing the minus 45.12? This condition is not satisfying here. Whatever the condition we are making here, it is not satisfying. If you observe this, like before this particular dot, the condition is satisfied, but only after the condition, like after the dot, whatever the values we are having, those values are not satisfied here. Those values are not satisfied. So this is very important. We need to understand here. Get in the pan. So this is the double data type. It's going to check the after dot also. After dot also, whatever the values we are having, so those values also is going to check here. This is important. We need to understand here. Okay. This is all about the simple example on this particular ternary operators. So any questions here? Any questions? Okay. So now what I will do, I will move on to the another important section here, how we can use this particular if statement. Because one if statement we already identified how we can use, but when we are having multiple conditions, how we can use. Basically, the programming here. Okay. So observe carefully, if I'm going to have multiple conditions, how we can write this particular if conditions. First we'll understand this particular if condition and later we'll move on to the switch cases here. So already we familiar with a simple example on the if condition, like one line of if condition. But now how we are going to write this particular multiple if conditions here. So let me have a simple example on this. For this, I'm going to create a one more class here. Okay, so if else I'm trying to define here, and inside this particular if else I'm going to write multiple conditions here. Now you can see, so we already familiar with the one if condition. So what exactly it will do? So whatever the expression, like whatever the condition we are going to write inside this particular block here, if this particular condition is returning true, so this body will execute here. Okay, the whatever the body we are going to write here, the body is going to execute. But the condition is returning false here. Now what we are doing is we are coming out of the whatever the if condition we are providing. But not only the one condition, so I want to check multiple condition. If one condition is failed, I want to check one more condition. So in that case, how we can write this simple example? Okay, so this is we are going to write here. Now observe carefully. Now I'm trying to define the variable as a month, and I'm going to initialize with the 4 year. And now string season I'm trying to initializing it. So right now I'm declaring this particular string season. So two data type we are using. First one is the int and the second one is string. So we already identified the integer related information, but we don't have a knowledge about the string. So right now, don't worry, we'll discuss upcoming classes how this particular string is going to work. But what we need to understand here, so in the current example, we need to understand the how we can come up with multiple conditions here. And if you see what we are doing here, if month equals to 12, and observe carefully, here I'm using double equals operator as well as I'm using the or condition. Yesterday we discussed about the boolean operators like and conditions and or conditions we discussed. The or condition I'm using in our current example. If month equals to 12, or if month equals to 1, and one more condition I'm making, that is or condition, month equals to 2. Getting the point? So here the reference variable I made wrong. Okay, so this is the three conditions. If you observe carefully, how many conditions we are making? So this is the first condition. Okay, this is the first condition we are providing. We are checking the value, like we are comparing the both values, left side with the right side value. If it is matched, so it's not going to check these two conditions here, because what is the operator we are using? Or operator we are using. So this is important here. Now finally, the first condition is failed, we are checking the second condition. If month equals to 1, if this particular month equals to 1 is satisfied, now what we will do? We'll try to getting one. We'll try to come into this line number 9 here. Body of this particular statement is going to execute here. Okay. So otherwise, it will try to look up the last condition here. Okay. This is important. We need to understand. So once any one of the condition is satisfied, now what happens internally? It will execute this particular information here. So season. So now what I'm doing here? It is a winter season. Okay, just I'm initializing the value called winter. But what we need to understand the information, this is important here. How many conditions we are providing here? Three conditions we are checking here. Every conditions, if any condition is satisfied, so it will go to this particular line number 9. Okay, so this entire block is not satisfied. If this particular entire block is not satisfied here, now what I will do? I will move on to the one more condition. Else if here. So this is very important here. Now what I am doing here, first time we are discussing about this particular else if. So what it will do first? First it will execute this. First it will execute this. If this particular condition is not satisfied, it will come back to the else if condition here. It will come back to the else if condition. Now you can see month equals to 3 I'm providing, and one more or condition, and month equals to 4, and or condition month equals to 5. So now observe how many conditions I'm making here. So inside this else if also we have a three conditions here. We have a three conditions. So what we are doing is either the three condition we are checking, or we are checking four condition, or we are checking with this particular five condition. Any one of this particular condition will satisfy. Again, it will move on to the line number 11. And what is this particular season? We'll call it as a spring. Okay, and one more else if I'm going to write. So this is the way we can write the multiple conditions here. So see the syntax how we are writing. First if we are starting, and the second else if we are starting, and you can write how many else if conditions you want to write. But here you cannot write more than one if. inside this. If you are writing the one more if here, so this block is different, and whatever the if condition you are going to write one more, that is a different one. Okay, so this is the order we need to follow here. Month equals to 6 I am defining, month equals to 7, and month equals to 8. So this is the one more block. Getting the point. And here the season, what I'm doing here, the season I'm defining as a summer. Okay, and one more else if I'm trying to write. So to understand all our conditions here, I'm writing like this: month equals to 9, or condition, month equals to 10, one more or condition, month equals to 11. Okay, if any one of this particular condition is satisfied, so what happens here, again I'm initializing this particular variable called season, and this particular season, so this will call it as a 2 month, and if any one of the season is not satisfied, it will go to this particular else block. Any one of the above conditions are not satisfied, so it will go to the this particular section here. It is a bogus month. Okay, so this is important, we need to understand here. This is important, we need to understand here. Now you can see how we are writing the conditions here. So first we start with the if condition. If this particular if condition is not satisfied, now it will check the second if statement. Even if this particular condition is not satisfied, it will go to this particular section, and if this is also not satisfied, it will go to this particular section here. Finally, we are moving into this particular else. If any one of the condition is not satisfied, any one of the condition is not satisfied, it will go to this particular else block here. Getting the point? So this is important, we need to understand here. Okay, so finally what I'm doing is I'm trying to print this particular season here. I'm trying to print this particular season. So observe which condition is going to satisfy here. Now observe which condition is going to satisfy here. This is very important, we need to understand here. Okay, so you can see it is satisfying the spring here. So spring is nothing but this is a spring we are defining. So this particular block of code is going to satisfy. Why this particular block of code is satisfied here? It's because of what we are doing here. The month value we are providing as a 4. So this particular section of code is going to satisfy. For example, if I'm trying to give as a 14, if I'm trying to give as a 14, now you can see which condition is satisfying here. So it is satisfying the else here. Why else it is satisfying? Because it's identified all the blocks here. Getting the point? It's trying to execute all the blocks here. Any block is not satisfied here. Getting the point? How many blocks we have right now here? All the blocks are failed here. So because of that here, it's coming to this particular else section. It is initializing this particular bogus month here. Okay, so this is very important here. Okay, so this is very important, we need to understand here. Now, and now what I will do, so I am going to provide some more value, something like 12. Whenever I'm trying to provide this particular 12 value, now what we need to understand here, you can see what is the value it's going to provide. Something like winter. Why it is modified the value? Because the condition is satisfied this. The condition is satisfied here. Okay, so this is a way, based on this particular month value, this all the conditions are going to satisfied here. Any questions here regarding this particular if and else blocks here? This is very important here, because in the real time example we are going to write same like this only. Whenever you are trying to make the conditions here, so these are all the different ways we are going to make the conditions here. Okay, but the internal expression will be different. Whatever we are writing here, the internal expression will be different here, but the structure, whatever the structure we are writing here, the structure is same here. Okay, so any questions? Okay, now what we will do, we'll move on to one more important example called switch cases here. How this particular switch case is going to work here. How this particular switch cases are going to work. Let me write this particular switch cases in our Java. And so before going to write this particular switch cases example, so what I want to write here, I want to comment out this particular int example, and I will write one more example on this particular condition. So if find else if here. Okay, let's see how we can write this particular example with a different value. Now you can see, so double I'm trying to write here, and inside this particular double, so what I want to write here, so balance I'm trying to write. The balance basically, so this is the balance I'm initializing here. Along with this particular balance here, I am going to check one more character here, something like here. Getting the point. So these are all the two conditions we are having. And now observe carefully. Again, I'm defining the condition. So balance here. Balance equals to, or we can make a not condition. Balance not equals to something like 45.17. And I'm using the character ch equals to something like b. Getting the point. So this is the one condition I'm using here. If this condition is satisfied, we'll write the some values here. We'll write the some values here. So what is the values I'm trying to print here? If I will print here, so balance, and here I will print a character here. If this particular condition is not satisfying here, I'm going to check one more condition. So balance equals to something like 45.17. And here what I'm doing, I'm going to check the condition ch equals to yeah. Okay, so this is another else if condition. So here also we'll print the same values here. And one more else if I'm trying to write. So balance equals to something like, so 45 dot same 17 I'm trying to write here. And observe carefully, here I'm using or condition. Ch is equals to capital B, or we can see not B. See how many conditions we are writing here. Getting the point? How many conditions we are writing? This is important here. And now observe carefully. If you are not interested to write the else, we can ignore this particular else also here. We can ignore this particular else statement. So it will try to check all the conditions here. And if any one of the conditions is satisfied, it will print the value. Otherwise, without printing the value, it will come out of all the conditions here. Without printing the value, it will come out of all the values here. Okay, this is very important, we need to understand. But you can see one condition is satisfied here. One condition is satisfied here. So what is the condition is satisfied, we need to identify here. Okay, let's see. Here I'm putting a breakpoint here. So now observe, here I'm trying to put a breakpoint here. So character A I'm initializing. Now what is the balance value right now we are having? 45.17. But the condition here, what we are doing here? So the condition not equals to 45.17. So the expression is returning false here. Why the expression is returning false? So now you can see balance is equals here basically, and whatever the character we are having right now, it is having the different character. It is having something like A. Okay, so this is we need to understand. Now you can see the second else if condition is satisfying here. The second else if condition is satisfying. So once it is satisfied here, it's not going to check this particular section code here. Only one block it's going to satisfy. Once any one of the block is satisfied, remaining blocks it's not going to check. It will come out of the all the blocks here. Getting the point? This is important. We need to understand. Whenever we are trying to work with this particular if and else if here, so if this particular block is satisfied, okay, this particular block is satisfied now. So whatever the block we are writing here, it's not going to check it. Same way, if you see, if section is satisfied here, if this particular section is satisfied here, now what we need to understand here, all these particular blocks are going to ignore here. Right now, all the blocks are going to ignore here. So this is the behavior we are having internally regarding this particular if and else if statements here. Okay, so this is we need to understand very carefully. One more example we identified, but what we need understand. First one I am adding with the AND operator. Second one also I am checking with the AND operator with a different value, and third one I am checking with the OR condition here. So see how I am trying to defining with the multiple conditions here. Okay, so this is the one more example we need to understand regarding this particular if and else if. Now we'll move on to the switch case here. So switch case is also one of the alternative way of this particular if and else if here. So what is the differences we are having if and switch cases here? Okay, so let me write the simple example on the switch case here. Switch case I'm defining one more class here, and inside this particular switch case, now what I will do, I'm going to write this particular example. Now you can see the syntax is how we need to write the first. First I'm going to write the syntaxes, later we can write the simple example. So the syntax is basically it's going to like, so this is the switch case we are going to write here, and here we'll write a expression here. So based on this particular expression, based on this particular expression, so we have a different cases. So case 1 and case 2, getting the point. So case 2, I modified the syntax here. So this is the way we are going to write the different cases here. Getting the point. Now what we need to understand. So if the expression, whatever the expression we are writing here, if this particular expression is going to satisfy this particular case, any one of the case is going to satisfy. For example, the expression I'm giving as a 3. Whenever I'm giving an expression as a 3, this case is going to execute. Okay, these two cases are going to ignore, and this case also is going to ignore. So this particular case only it's going to satisfy here. And if I'm going to give something like 13, now what happens here? So any one of the case is not satisfied. But what happens internally? We have a default one. We have a default one. The default one is going to execute here. The default one is going to execute here. So this is the way the switch cases are going to work. And same way in the if and else if, how we are trying to use the else block here. So here also we are going to write the default block here. Okay, if any case is not satisfied, the default one will execute here. If any case is satisfied, the appropriate case is going to execute here. Okay, this is we need to understand the switch cases example. Okay, now observe how I am trying to write the simple example. I am trying to define with the loop here int I is equals to 0 and I less than 6 here. The condition I'm making I less than 6 here. Whenever I'm making this particular I less than 6 here, what we need to understand, the loop is going to repeat around 6 times here. Okay, so this is the for loop I'm defining, and internally I'm defining the switch case. The expression I'm defining only I. Observe carefully, the expression I'm defining here I only, and now the case I'm defining as a 0. Sorry, it will start with a 0. Okay, so once this particular case is going to start with a 0, now what I'm doing here, I'm printing the statements here. Simply I'm going to print the statement here, I is 0. Getting the point? The particular I value 0, and I'm going to put a breakpoint here. And now what I'm doing is case 1 I'm defining. So this is the one more case I'm defining. And here what I'm doing here, I is 1. Case 2 I'm defining. Once we define this particular case 2, now what I'm doing here, I is 2. This is the break statement we need to use. So why we need to use the break statement here? I will explain that break statement. If I'm not using this particular break statement, what happens internally? Okay, so now you can see I is 3. Okay, so finally break. So instead of this particular case here, now I will go to the default. Getting the point? I'm going to use the default one and I will use the sysout here. So this particular sysout is I is greater than 3. Getting the point? I is greater than 3. So this is I want to print. Now observe carefully how this example is going to work. So how many times this particular loop is going to repeat here? This loop is going to repeat around 6 times here. Getting the pen. This loop is going to repeat 6 times here. Now, what we need to understand this. So if you observe carefully, for each time this particular switch case is going to identify here, and here what we need to identify here based on the expression. So every time the expression is going to modify here. Why is going to modify? Because here we provided as a I here. This expression basically, now every time the I value is going to increase here. So initially it's going to start with 0. Now later it's going to increase this particular I value here. Okay. So based on this particular increment I value, so the different cases are going to satisfied here. Let me run this example. Now you can see, so I value initially satisfied to 0 and later it is satisfied with 1 and 2 and 3. So now you can see these two are the default one. Getting the point? So this particular default is executing how many times here? 2 times is executing. Why it is executing? Because we don't have a appropriate case here. Getting the point? We don't have the appropriate case here. If the case is not available, it will go to the default section. Now you can see if this particular default one, if I'm trying to comment, the default one, if I'm trying to comment here, what happens internally? Only the 3, up to the 3 is going to execute here. So even though the condition, even though the expression value is modified here, we don't have an appropriate case here. So because of that, it's not going to execute here. Okay. So based on our requirement, we can define this particular default one. Getting the one. If any one of the case is not satisfied, I want to execute this particular default one, we can define like this. Otherwise, so based on the different cases, we can execute that one and we can so write the code here. See, so for just for understanding, I'm writing the sysout here, but real-time scenarios, we are not going to write this particular sysout here. What we will do, so we may come up with different executions. For example, this is going to satisfied with 0 as a save. Getting the point? If it is going to satisfied for the case as a save, it will write the database saving the object information here. And this is for the updating information. Getting the point? And this is for the, so loading the an object from the database here. And this is for the deleting an object from the database. Getting the point? So this is a way we are going to write the multiple, like we are going to write the different way of this particular cases here. Getting the point? But only the problem based on this particular switch cases, like the expression. Based on this particular expressions only, the appropriate case is going to satisfied. And here, the case is going to identified based on the switch expression. And the type is also important. But here, what is the type I'm making? Integer. And what is the value we are providing here? Integer. But if you provide here character, if you provide here something like int, it will give you an error. Getting the point? It will give you an error here. So we cannot make the different data type. So the switch case expression, it needs to modify with this particular cases here. If it is not modified here, this particular example is not going to work here. Okay, so this is very important. We need to write this particular switch into case related example. Okay, any questions? Okay, so now what we need to understand here, if I'm trying to remove this break, what happens internally? So I don't want to use this particular breaks here. Okay, I removed all the breaks here. Now you can see if I'm going to run this example, output you can observe how many times these loops are executing here. Now you can see the output here, how many times it is executing: 0, 1, 2, 3. And again it is executing the greater than. Again it start with the 1, 1, 2, 3. Again is executing the greater than. So again it's starting with the 2, 3 greater than. So 3 greater than. Okay, so it's 2 times the greater than value. Now what happens internally? Basically, so basically what we need to understand here, every time, getting the one. So if the break is not available, even though the case is not satisfied, so observe, so here I'm putting the breakpoint here. We are going to run in the debug mode. Now observe case value how much. To identify the case value, what we need basically, so the right side section of variable we need to understand here. This is important here. The variable section will give you the information. So right now I value 0. I value 0 we are having. So once I value 0, what happens internally? Which case it basically it should satisfy? So it should satisfy this only, this particular case. It's only satisfy this particular case. Now, right now, what happening internally? Now observe carefully. Okay, so the case 0 is satisfied here and is executing the case 1, case 2 also executing, case 3 also executing, as well as default also executing. So now the loop is repeating. Now the I value 1 here. You can observe here, right now I value is modified here. I value 1. So again, I value 1. So right now it is not satisfying this 0 because the case value is updated. Directly it is moving into the case 1 here. So case 1 is trying to execute. Once the case 1 is completed, a case 2, case 3 and default 1. Right now I value 2. So now you can see directly it will come to the case 2. Directly it will come to this particular case 2. So now you can see it's coming to the case 2 here. It's coming to this particular case 2 here. So from the case 2, case 3 is executing, default executing, and case 4. Okay. Now, so what is the I value? Right now 4. This particular 4, based on this particular 4, we don't have a case value. We don't have a case value. Now it is moving into this particular default section here. So if we observe carefully, the last statement also is executing the default one. Now it is coming out of the loop here. Now it is coming out of this particular loop. So because of that particular break, if I'm not adding the break, how many times is executing here? Multiple times they are executing. So now observe, with a break, we'll try to identify the example how it's going to execute here. Okay. Now again I'm running the same example, but right now I'm providing all the break statements here. Right now I'm providing all the break statements here. So observe carefully, switch case it started with 0. So 0 is satisfying, like once this particular case is satisfied here, it's printing the I value 0. Now what happening internally? What happening internally? It is stopping the current iteration. It is stopping the current iteration. Now if you see, it will not go to the below statements here. It will not go to the below statements. So now if I'm going to come to the next line, observe carefully. It's going to the for loop here. Earlier, what happened here? It is executing all the values. So even though the different cases are not satisfied here, even though the different cases are not satisfied, it's trying to executing the different the below cases here. But whenever we are making the break here, when we are making this particular break here, what happening internally? It is not checking the below cases here. Directly, it's going out here. Directly it is going out here. Now, so observe one more time I am executing. What is right now the I value? 1. You can see the right side I value is updated just now. So it will go to the direct to I value 1. I value 1 break. Switch case I value 2 break. And switch case I value 3. Okay, break. And default here. Getting the point. So this is the way the default is executing. Now coming out here. So how many times is executed here? For each case is executed only one time. But if I'm trying to remove the appropriate break statement here, even though the case is not satisfied, is executing the multiple times here. Is executing multiple times here. So this is very important. We need to understand here. Okay. So this is whenever we are trying to write the case and switch cases example. So we need to add a break statement here. If you are not adding the break statement here, the below cases are going to execute here. Okay. So this is all about the different example on the case example. Any questions? Okay. If you don't have anything here, now what we will do? So I'm going to provide the one more example on this, the same switch cases. Observe carefully now what we are doing here. So here basically we are going to write the same switch and case example, but here now observe carefully what I am doing here. I am going to write with the condition 12 here, and I am going to remove all the cases here. Okay, so this is the case 0 I am defining. See, break and continue I will explain later. So we cannot use the same the break and continue in the current example here, because continue is not the, okay, let's see. Okay, let me, instead of break here, I will use the continue. Okay, so same example will run here. Instead of the break, I am putting as a continue. Now observe carefully. Again, the same example I am running. So case 0 is satisfying here. Even once the case is satisfied here, continue. Now what happening internally? Case 1 is satisfying. And case 2. Okay. And case 3. Now default 1. So sorry, I am providing the condition as a 12. So it will try to keep on multiple times here. Now if you observe carefully, what happening internally? Now you can see how many times this particular greater than condition is satisfying here. It's satisfying more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. The default case is satisfying more than 8 times because the condition we provided as a 12 here. Right now, what we need to understand here, so here we can go for the continue or break is fine, but we cannot use both at a time. So either if the case is 0, you can use the break. Okay, so now case 1 we come up with the continue, and case 2 also I'm using the continue, and we can use break here. Okay, now you can see the same example I'm running here. Sorry, I forget to enable the debug points. And I want to make 6 only. Now you can see I am running in the debug mode. Now observe I value initially 0. So we identified break. It will go to the second statement, and we identify the continue. Now you can see. So now if you observe, so even if it is a break or continue, we can use any values here. So the whatever the expected output we expected earlier, the same output here. But break basically it will terminate the current execution, and continue what it will do. If you are trying to iterate multiple iterations, for example, I'm trying to repeat around 10 times, but so whenever the condition is satisfied around the line number, the 4th iteration or 5th iteration, now what happens is it will not execute the 5th iteration. it will not execute the fifth iteration. It will come out of the fifth and it will start with the sixth one. But break, if the condition is satisfied around the fifth iteration, the remaining iteration is not going to execute here. Okay, so this is the difference we have break and continue. We'll see that in our upcoming classes here, how exactly the break and continue is going to work here. Okay, so now observe how this particular the switch cases is working internally. Even we can go for the break and continue in the different cases here. But so if whatever we are using the break and continue here, the same break and continue, if we are using the for loop and different example, it will not work here. So for example, I'm going to remove this case related, and what I'm doing here, I'm checking the condition. If I equals to 5 or not 5, I will go for the 4 only. If the I value equals to 4, I'm going to use the break, and otherwise I will print this particular I value. Okay, so see the break how it is working in our loop concept here. So 0 to 3, getting the point, 0 to 3. Whenever the 0 to 3, it will become I value 4 here. Whenever the I value 4, we are breaking the statement here. How many values we are getting here? I'm going to copy this, and here I'm putting these statements here. What are all the values we are getting right now? Okay, this is the break related example. Now what I will do here, I'm going to use the continue. Here I'm going to use the continue here. So whenever I'm using the continue, now observe the same example how it is running. Now you can see, so break it is returning only 0 to 3, but continue it is returning 5 also. Why the continue is returning 5? Getting the point. So if you are making the condition around 12, so see the output here, how it is going to print here. So see the output here, only the current value will ignore here. So now you can see 0 to 3 after the 4. 4 it is not available. Why the 4 it is not available? Because the 4 condition is satisfied here. The condition is satisfied here. Now 5 to 11. Getting the point. 5 to 11 is printing. Okay, so this is the behavior of this particular continue. So only whenever we are writing the condition, the current condition if satisfied, it will not do the operations. It will move on to the next iteration here. Okay, because instead of printing the line number, the 8 here, what happens internally? It's going to the one more iteration whenever we are using the continue. So see here, break here. So see here the break how it is going to work. Now you can see the break is printing 0 to 3 only. But continue is printed 0 to 11. Only the one value it is ignored, that is called 4. Only the one value it is ignored, that is called 4 here. Getting the point. So this is the behavior of this particular continue and break here. Okay, continue basically it will not execute the current iteration whenever the condition is satisfied. But break, whenever the condition is satisfied, it will come out of the entire loop. The remaining iterations is not going to execute here. So this is only the difference between continue and break statements here. Okay. So now what you need to understand here. Okay. So what we will do, we'll move on to the same whatever the switch cases we are executing here. Now observe carefully, but in this case is different. Whatever we are using the continue break, what we are doing here, we are trying to stop the current iteration here. Getting the point. Once this particular case is satisfied here, we are not giving the option to execute the below cases here. So in this case, we can go for the break or we can go for the continue here. So this is I want to provide the informations. Okay. So still any questions? So observe. So I want to provide the one more break here. So for example, I'm using this particular switch cases as a 12 condition, and I'm trying to remove this particular all the cases here. So case 0, case 1, case 2, case 3. Okay, so case 3 and case 4. So these are all the 4 cases I'm using. After the 4 cases, I'm going to use this out here. And if you observe carefully, I is less than 5. This particular I is less than 5. Okay, how many times this I is less than 5 is going to satisfy? That we need to understand. And I'm trying to provide the case 5 and case 6 here, case 7, case 8, case 9 here. And here I is less than I is less than 10. Okay, here I'm using the break. And finally, what I will do, here I'm going to use the default. Here I'm using default here. So the default here is out I is greater than 10. Okay, I is 10 or more. Here we are going to write because it's going to satisfy the 10 or more. So because we have 10 and 11. Now what we need to understand here. So this is the different way of writing the switch and cases here. How many cases I'm writing here? 4 cases. For each case, getting the pen. For each case now what happening internally, it will try to execute up to this. Why it is executing here? Because in between we don't have any break statement here. Getting the pen. In between we don't have any break statement here. Whenever we are trying to satisfy this particular case 0, it will execute the case 4. If the case 1 is satisfied, it will execute the case 4. And if the case 2 also satisfied, it will execute the case 4. Because case 4 only is the stoppable statement we provided. It's like the break statement we provided here. Okay, let me run the simple example. Now we'll understand how it is going to execute here. So if you see here, the switch value we already aware of, it is 0. Now if it is 0, even though the case is 0, you can see the right side. You can see this particular right side variable section, the I value is 0. Even the case is 0, here also you can find out the I value. I value, it is 0 we are having. So even though it is 0, basically it should satisfy this case 0. But now what happening here, it is satisfying this particular case 4 here. Now it is satisfying this particular case 4 here. Okay, so this is important here. Now break statement. Now even the case 2 also, case 1. The case value right now 1, but it's satisfying the case 4. Case 3, satisfying the case 4. Case 4 it is satisfying. But now if you observe I value 4, so it is satisfying this particular case 4. So now the value 5 here, I value 5, so it is not going to execute this. It will try to execute this particular case 9 here because in between we don't have a break statements here. So this is also a different way of writing here. Any one of the case is satisfied. Get in the point. If any one of the case is satisfied, now we are giving an option to execute this particular code here. Okay, this is the another way of writing the switch cases here. Now you can see it's going to satisfy 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Up to 9 it will satisfy. And if 10 here, whenever the I value 10, you can see the I value 10 here. Whenever this particular I value 10 here, so the case is not going to satisfy here and it will go to the default. It will go to the default. So this is nothing but the way of writing the multiple conditions. How we write the multiple condition? Same way, here we are going to write multiple switch cases here. Okay, if expression is going to satisfy any one of the case, If expression is going to satisfy any one of the case, it needs to execute this. Getting the point? And here, if expression is going to satisfy any one of the case here, we are giving an option to execute this particular statement here. Okay, so this is the another way of writing this particular case statements here. And so this is the combination example what we discuss here, if and else. If you see, so here we are having the three conditions: month equals to 12, month equals to 1, and month equals to 2. And what we are doing is, every three conditions we are providing the season value. Every three conditions we are providing this particular season value. Same way here, what we will do, and what we are doing is every four conditions. Okay, every five conditions here. Getting the point? Every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, every five conditions we are providing the result here. And same way here, every five conditions here. Getting the point? So this is the alternate way of writing the particular if and else here. Okay. So any questions regarding this particular another switch case what we are discussing here? Okay. So if not, I'm going to stop the session up to here. We'll continue tomorrow. Like we are going to discuss about the nested related example, how we can write the nested switch. So this is the first example we are discussing, nested related example. So we'll continue tomorrow. Once we're familiar with this particular switch cases, we'll move on to the so do and do while here. So how we can come up with a while related example, and later how we can come up with a do while. Okay. So whatever we are discussing right now, these are all the basic example, and this is very important example. If you are very much comfortable on this particular basic concept here, you can write any kind of application or any kind of the program here. Okay. So that's the reason we are taking some more time to provide the more information about the basic concepts here. Okay. So once the core job is completed, so we'll try to give up our example a little bit faster here. Okay. So we'll continue tomorrow.